We left off with Johanna beginning to share really the tool chest she's provided in her book, The Transformation Promise. And the process of living in the quantum heart field involves a 4-step process that she's modeled on the Ho'oponopono. And as she said, there are many ways to forgive, but this is a very powerful and simple process. It involves releasing an attachment many of us have to being a victim of someone or some circumstance. And what she suggests, and what I believe with all my heart, is that in a quantum universe we create the very experiences we need to obtain the growth we need, so we can learn to be grateful for even the darkest of experiences. And again, after she shares part of the process, I'm going to give an example she uses in the book, because I think it's a large and powerful example. But Johanna, you're talking about your process. So the first thing that you had to do was accept responsibility.
Yeah, and then the second one would be apologizing to the other players in the play for having put them through all their stuff for my experience. And then being truly grateful that they all played their role so well. And, if it's a powerful experience, they played the roles really well, so it's a thank you. And then you release the whole situations with I love you back into the universe. So it's very simple, and you can do it very fast on small things or in depth of larger things. But everything we hold on to becomes baggage that weighs us down. It narrows where we can go and how much love can flow through us.
Right. And, again, listeners, the prayer, the Ho'oponopono prayer is, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And this was a psychiatrist developed this. He was assigned to a mental institution for the criminally insane, and he would simply pull out their charts, and based upon his belief that that we are not separate, that we are one, that our experiences are derived from something within us, no matter what they are, he began to identify with the actions of the criminally insane. As Johanna said, in order for us to learn things like forgiveness, there has to be something to forgive. It's the way, that's how we learn forgiveness. If nothing bad ever happened to us, there would be no lesson in forgiveness.
Yeah, I don't think any of us lack any opportunities to forgive here.
Right.
There's always plenty of things that happen.
Yeah. Well, let's use the example. I think his name was Tom. Personally, listeners, I look forward to the day when governments declare war and no one shows up to fight them, because I think that's entirely possible. But in the meantime, we're cultured, we're socialized into thinking it's the right thing to do. And a lot of people that go to war come back with tremendous baggage because it violates who they are, and yet they did it based upon a belief system that they can now let go of through this work. Why don't you share with us about Tom, your veteran?
I believe that's the story where, he actually ended up killing a few people, and having to realize that in this forgiveness process, that even though, somebody else made him do it or whatever, and it was part of the war, he's still the one that is responsible for his actions. Has to live with that, which I think is a big problem for a lot of the veterans.
Yeah.
And by going through this process, he could actually let go of the pain and forgive himself for that and move on. Because it's a transient stop here on Earth. We're all going to leave this planet some way at some point, and we're all going back to that big oneness, love energy eventually. So forgiving and moving into more of a flow of love is really important. And realizing that we're all one. We're all the same person. If we hurt somebody else, we're hurting ourselves. That's really the key. So if we start forgiving ourselves and others for everything, we move closer to being at one with everybody.
Right.
And it's not easy always. Not always easy.
Well, no, it's not. And you do discuss our identification with groups as we're living on the planet, whether it's our family, our community, our nationality, our race, our religion. These are imposed constructs, listeners. We really are no different from one another. We're far more alike than we are different from one another. And until we forgive ourselves, let's just use the case of a veteran, until that veteran really forgives himself for the part he played in the war, he's not going to be able to exercise a different discernment, a different choice. If he's a victim of his identification with nationalism, or his identification with what it means to be a man, or we could just go on and on. His
identification with war. As long as he identifies with that, there'll be more wars. That's right. Because that is the structure in which he moves, and we can't ever change anybody else, although we love to. We can only change ourselves, and then we can see the results in the people around us.
That's right, and you quote Gandhi when you say, be the change you want to see in the world, and that is the quintessential nature of personal responsibility. You aren't going to change things outside of you. You can only change what is within you, and then the outside world changes to accommodate those changes within you. Right, Johanna?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's a call to, the book's really a call to work on yourself and become aware of what you're actually doing and what you're actually manifesting. And, especially nowadays where it's so modern to manifest a lot of material things.
Right.
And I don't really want to put that down, but it usually comes from a very individual view also. It's, I want all this stuff, and I'm working on manifesting it. But unless it's good for everybody, it's not going to bring everlasting joy. If I want to have something for my life, it also has to be good for everybody else.
Right. And we can really get ourselves into trouble. We can become enslaved by our desires. In other words, you're right. A lot of people are using the laws of attraction, the laws of manifesting our reality. But they're locked down into attempting to create a material abundance as opposed to understanding what it means to have spiritual, soul abundance, soul prosperity.
Well, also not everybody can have it, and that's the key already to it. If not everybody on the planet can have it, then it's probably not the thing that will bring you enlightenment.
Right.
Because it is something that sets you apart from others, and everything that sets you apart and every judgment brings you further away from your true nature.
Right. And, you talk about towards the end of the book, too, healing the observer, and you talk about remote bystander. Share with listeners, again, what these examples of what it means to be an observer or remote bystander, and how we can work with that as part of our own healing process.
Well, if we just work on ourselves and we come from the point of view that this is our universe we live in, we become responsible for everything in it, or we become at least a part of everything in it.
Right.
And so when we see something and it irritates us, or we read a story in the newspaper and it irritates us, the moment it irritates us, there's some sort of responsibility for us. Because at that moment when it irritates us, it becomes part of our life. And so then we can use the Ho'oponopono to heal it, or we can find other things. If it irritates you, it's most likely a habit you have not healed within yourself.
Right.
Like if it irritates you that people really fight and hate each other, look for the hate inside yourself. Especially if you go into nationalism or racism or something like that, and you go, well, I really hate how racist these people are. Well, what are you saying? You're saying the same thing they are saying. Exactly. They're saying we hate somebody else, and at the moment when you say I hate them, you do the same thing.
That's right.
So,
and I just want to share, Johanna, this is actually where I'm at in life right now, because I spent a couple of years as an activist before turning to do radio and teaching, and I was on the spiritual path, believing at the time that the right thing to do, now I still believe in exposing things, because I think until we know what needs to change, they won't change. So I'm not about denial, but I am working right now with releasing my judgments towards what's going on in the world. There's no shortage of insanity in the world. And part of that process for me, I first of all, I had to recognize that what I'm doing is I'm judging. I'm making value judgments about things that are happening. And listeners, honestly, this has been one of the most difficult things in my life to work with. But it's as Johanna said, if I may feel righteous in harboring bitterness or resentment or anger towards the bankers or towards governments or towards the military. But the simple fact that I am allowing myself to harbor any of that means that I am creating that in the world. I'm a co-creator of those very things in the world. And so this is taking huge this is what we're talking about, taking responsibility for the state of our world and the power of one. What do you do with it? You change yourself. You really get clear on what you stand for, what type of world you want to, you desire, not just for yourself, but for everybody. And so, Johanna, I don't know what your experience is.
Yeah, I can relate. I'm an opinionated activist at heart, too.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Well, you'll say no, but for me.
But then when you move into the total observer, you see that everybody that acts in some really ridiculous way acts that way out of fear. And when your compassion comes in, that's all, their fear acting out. They're afraid of either, poverty or losing out, and they have to oppress thousands of people because they're so afraid of losing power and control in their life.
The book is really masterful in really distilling down the essence of what healing is. It is really to live in love. Love is not a duality. She did a great job of, what is the opposite of, a lot of people think the opposite of love is fear. It's not. The opposite of fear is peace. Love is. And in order to acquire that, to hold, let's just talk about holding that space of being love in the world, we have a lot of healing, forgiving that we need to do. And this is right from her book. Once we are open to the oneness of the universe, us being a part of everything and everything being a part of us, whatever we encounter, in essence, becomes our responsibility, and we can transform it with a smile, a kind word. Don't underestimate kind words, smiles. Don't underestimate a simple acts of kindness and compassion. Now, she states that being the remote bystander is a little trickier because, again, if you watch the news or read newspapers or you're otherwise engaged, you're constantly confronted with issues that go against your innate integrity. So then she goes on, the fact that you're experiencing feelings while you become aware of a situation indicates that it is your business. So, and we're not talking about desensitizing our stuff so that we can shirk responsibility. There's a difference, right, Johanna?
Right. No, we have to take responsibility, but then if we fight a war with the war, we have more war. But there are plenty of good examples for us. There's, Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez, and Jesus, Yogananda, Buddha. There's a different way. We can show a different way of being that comes from love. Well, and the more you step into the love that is the essence of you, the less you are afraid. And as Cesar Chavez said something like that, you cannot oppress a man that has no fear.
Right.
You can't. And then you get somebody like Gandhi or Dr. Martin Luther King that can actually step out in a peaceful way.
Right.
And so what are we really afraid of? We're afraid of dying, losing control. Well, that'll happen anyway.
Right. So
we might as well just let that go and start really living what we really want to represent and who we really are.
Right. Johanna, really, listeners, it's a brilliant little book. As I said, she'll teach you how to ask the right questions. The process is simple. That doesn't always translate as easy. It is simple. And Johanna, I just want to thank you for being with us this morning. I've really enjoyed the program and your book.
Well, thank you so much, Lorraine. It was my pleasure and honor to be on your show.